Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. I'm your host, Kelly Bennett. I'm a New York City based brand strategist, and each week I talk to founders building really cool emerging brands. Today is no different. I have Mike and Nick, the co founders of Blobs, which is a really great candy that's low in sugar. I've been seeing it pop up around New York City. And Nick and Mike, I'm really stoked to have you on the show.
Thank you for
Excited to
having
be
me.
here.
You're so welcome. So, to kick things off, if you don't mind, give us a little bit of your background. Mike, I'll start with you. Um, what was a little bit of your background before co-founding this brand?
For sure. Yeah. So my background is largely in the marketing space. So I came up in the ad agency world before going in-house, and my in-house experience was kind of in two worlds, the publishing world. So I worked at the New York Times and USA Today. And then also in the startup world where I led growth marketing at Quip, and was head of growth at Hawthorne. So a couple CPG startups in there as well.
Very cool. So, publishing and then CBG, that sounds like two totally opposite worlds, but I'm sure that understanding both is really powerful of what you're bringing into this brand.
For sure. And I actually I always kind of say that publishing was sort of the first D2C product out there where I mean that and like milk, where people were just getting it delivered every day on a subscription
That's
basis.
true.
So a lot of those lessons do translate over, which was very convenient for me when I made that switch.
Very cool. And Nick, what about you?
Yeah, so I have a very different background. I'm a biochemist and came up in private equity, building sustainability strategies for different funds. And
So, a
then
chemist and then worked in VC.
more private equity, more large stage growth
Oh,
company,
okay.
designed like sustainability functions, back in 2016, 2017. Um, and then right before Blobs, I worked across a number of different consumer forays and more early stage companies across different VCs. And that's kind of, what led to the ideation of, there was something that we wanted to do in this space.
Very cool. So, Mike, can you walk us through a bit more of the story behind the brand? How did this, you both have very different experiences, but also already could see the crossover. How did this come together? How did Blobs, which is such a fun name to say also, how did this happen?
Yeah, so I mean originally the idea for the product itself came from Nick. And I basically, when he was still living in New York and during COVID, I came over to his Town apartment and had some beers, and he basically pitched me on the idea of a better for you candy brand. And we looked at different spaces. The gummy space seemed to be exploding, not just in the better for you world, but just in general. I mean, I never stop talking about Nerds gummy clusters, which I think are the best candy ever made, other than Blobs around that time. So we kind of threw a bunch of ideas around and came to the idea basically that we wanted to do a candy brand that was a candy brand first, not a better for you brand first, but a candy brand first. And we saw a lot of white space available for that. And really, our thought process was, why do people buy candy in the first place? It's not
Hmm.
utilitarian. It's not to quench their hunger. It's to have fun. It's to like have a little like spark of joy, if you will. And that's sort of ultimately what led to the idea of everything like Blobs, the name. I mean, it was all sort of informed by this idea that we really want to do something fun first and foremost.
Fun first and foremost, and then better for you. And what was the thinking behind leading more with the fun aspect and then adding in, oh, actually, it's low in sugar?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple different thoughts behind it. One was the way that people, or one of our theses and the way people shop is that they're not like, okay, I want a better for you treat. Okay, I'll buy candy. It's people are like, oh, I want candy, but it's like not super great for me. And we see a lot of other brands out there that are doing better for you versions of candy that sort of already exists in a format that already exists.
Mm-hmm.
So our head was, what if we don't want to be the healthier version of XYZ. We want to be it are standalone. We want to stand alone, and we figure that building a brand like that will create better brand loyalty, and it'll create just better brand recognition. It'll pique more curiosity when people see it on the shelves when they don't necessarily know what it is. But we wanted to pack somewhat of a nostalgia punch with it while being somewhat familiar, but still foreign, if that makes sense. And
Totally.
that sort of informed everything from the shapes of our candy to the name to the flavors to all of that was sort of piquing people's curiosity while being somewhat familiar and fun.
Very cool. And Nick, can you speak about more on the differentiators of what you wanted to do different in the industry?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things, right? We want to differentiate ourselves not just by being fun, but also including new kind of, I want to say new flavors and formats that I think the category hadn't really seen before. So we wanted to include things like pomegranate that we love, things like yuzu, things like, just interesting flavors and formats that we hadn't seen in the industry before that we thought would entice consumers and really pique that curiosity. Um, the other differentiator we really have in our brand is really the bright colors. And I think from our strategy, which is to just really be able to kind of expand the better for you category beyond kind of naturals where we are today, and really try to expand that into C stores and into different places where you typically wouldn't find a better for you gummy, in office pantries and places of that nature.
Got it. And can you walk us through the strategy behind the launch and how you've been scaling, like that high level, just what that looked like getting started and kind of where you are now?
Yeah, so we tested initially in May online just to see how our product performed and who our customer set was. And then we took that and we tested within some of the smaller kind of tastemaker stores where we could really get proof points. So our friends at Marks the Shop, it's actually the same storefront my grandfather owned in the 80s, was our
That's
first
cool.
store in South Philly. It was a very, very cool moment, their first store. And they helped us get a lot of data, really understand who our customer was, what the data, what they were interested in, what flavors they really loved. And that let us kind of take that data from these different smaller stores in New York and Philly, and then reiterate our product and for a launch with more regional stores. So, we launched with our friends at the Bruno Bros. We launched with our friends at Fairway and Gourmet Garage. And that let us again then take that data and be able to launch on a national stage where we are with Sprouts today. And again, it's about
Amazing.
taking these. I don't want to say it's not a hockey stick. It's like a step. It's a step function, right? Taking a little steps and building the brand one step at a time.
Absolutely. And what have you been hearing from retailers in this candy better for you space? What was something that piqued their curiosity about Blobs, or something that you see that they're looking for that you really felt the fit the need for? I would love to hear a little bit on that.
Some early feedback, especially from our regional partners, where we've been in for a few months now, has been that they were looking for a product like this that aligned with their mission to provide something healthy and better for you, for especially for the kids shopping in these stores.
Right.
Parents have to buy candy, right?
Totally.
But also aligned with kind of their goal to kind of create a more immersive and fun experience while shopping.
Got
So,
it. And um Mike, were you going to add something in there too?
Um, not nothing specifically, but I mean, just in terms of feedback we've gotten from the stores, similar to Nick said, it's the category is doing extremely well. I mean, there's a lot of the brands are like that came before us are flying off the shelves just by being on the shelves in the right positioning. So they're always happy to look for new brands to bring in, and it's something we've seen sort of across the industry. We even people that we haven't worked with, we've gotten that feedback from at trade shows and things of that nature.
Love that. And what would you say to the retailers and even just to customers of the vision for the brand? Like, where would you love to see Blobs go with your cool flavors, shapes, name, branding, retail partners? Where would you love to see this go?
do we both want to take this one, Mike? You want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of bring this up a lot. As this analogy is, I think we kind of want to become like the Wonka of better for you candy. So to really lean into the fun aspect of it, to really lean into creating new formats that aren't just, again, not just versions of candy that's better for you, but a brand new, net new candy format that stands on its own, things like that nature. So like I mentioned Nerds gummy clusters, that's definitely a big inspiration for me. It's like sort of a new format that's one of the top selling hottest candies in the country right now. Like, why couldn't that have been done in a better for you format? And I think
Mm,
that's sort of where our head is. And it's uh yeah, we want our brand to stand alone as a fun, awesome candy brand that kids don't even think of as a healthy version. It's just a different brand on the shelf. And um all the excitement and colorfulness and XYZ that comes along with that.
love it. Love it. And Nick, what would you say to that point too?
I mean, we created Blobs. I think it's fluid enough where we can launch a diverse range of products.
Right.
The fun thing about candy is that there are so many different textures and flavors and shapes, and there's so many different ways to play within the medium that we really can create some really cool things that stay tuned over the next year or so. We got some cool things coming out. Um,
Amazing.
that we've already kind of, we're in the lab constantly trying to come up with new creative things.
I love that. And what a fun space to be in, to be creating things. I mean, candy, I'm sure taste testing and talking about candy all day. I mean, there is definitely perks to behind the scenes of building the brand. It just sounds like you guys are having fun doing it too.
It's definitely a lot of mad science, which I would not expect. There really is a lot of Willy Wonka mad science going on.
Very cool. And what piece of advice, and I'll ask both of you, that you would share to a founder who's in the really early stages, maybe someone who's in their kitchen right now, testing out recipes or getting ready to reach out, cold email, cold pitch their brand for the first time, maybe to a potential retail partner. What would you share as a piece of advice? Nick, I'll start with you.
Yeah, look, I think the number one thing is just get feedback, talk to everyone, understand your customer, understand what they want. If you have an idea, share it, figure out how you can improve it, and just figure out what it takes to get it to market. That's what we did with our product, right? Before we even got the product to market, we spent a good year just asking retailers and customers what they want to see out of a candy product.
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you a part two to that question. How did you reach out to them to even just start that conversation?
I call and call, call. I cold call everyone. But
That's great. No,
that's
that's
why
really
Mike's
tactful
laughing over
advice.
there. Mike's laughing over there. I'll
Yeah.
walk in stores and
Really,
say, "Who wants some
yeah,
candy?"
walk in stores.
That's awesome. No, that's really helpful because I think that so many people could overthink that part or say, like, oh, there has to be maybe another hack or something that they could do instead. But you're saying, like, been more old school of like going in, reaching out, like, hey, I have this candy brand, and right. And leverage relationships that you may already have or see who knows someone that could be of help. I like that advice too, because I think that sometimes those things are overlooked in this day and age. So I think that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, and just building on that, I would say people are always willing to help you. If you ask for help.
I
That's
love that.
what we've learned.
Very cool. And Mike, what about you?
My advice, I
Advice.
think my biggest piece of advice, and it kind of ties into what we were just talking about, is to just take the next step every time. So like sometimes certain things will feel daunting or overwhelming, like finding someone to help you do R&D or co-packing
Right.
or who's going to help you with design or XYZ. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, it's like anything else in the world. And until you just try and take the next step and probably have a bunch of failures along the way, you're not going to make any progress. Um, and I think early on, Nick and I, not really having ever done this before and really knowing exactly what we're doing, would never have gotten through it if we weren't just willing to kind of look like idiots sometimes or ask like questions that anyone should know the answer to in the industry or things like that. And like you said, people are not everyone, but there are tons of people that are willing to help, especially if you're new and you're honest. Um, People are local; they'll help you out, things of that nature. And it worked out for us. I wouldn't say it was easy, but it was definitely doable.
Very cool. And most important question, where can people shop Blobs?
Yeah, so right now, we are currently in Sprouts nationwide, which is awesome.
Very
We
cool.
just launched there in January. You can also find us in tons of different stores in Philly and New York, like DeBruno Bros in Philly, um, like Nick said, Gourmet Garage in New York, Brooklyn Harvest Market. Hopefully coming to a lot more stores in that area soon. And we're also on our website, eatblobs.com and Amazon as well.
Very cool. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show and sharing behind the scenes of the brand, of how you've been building it and where you're going to be taking it. And thank you both.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Kelly. Thanks for having
You're
us.
so welcome. Thanks for everyone who listened to this episode. Share it with a friend who's starting a brand, and I'll see you all on the next episode. Bye.